Brothers and sisters, welcome back to my live. And those who aren't Muslim, apparently I've been told I've got a few not Muslim subscribers these days. Alhamdulillah, I think that's a good thing. So, Boris Johnson. I knew he was going. I think most people who understand enough about British politics can realise that the Prime Minister's time in the stand was gone. I think in many ways the precarious position he was on as the laughing buffoon and then making a very real narcissistic claim that he was going to be in power until 2030 was a fundamental problem for much of our country and much of our society. When he was elected, we saw him as the Jovian clown who could make people laugh and genuinely had a good-natured intention. But once we saw that there was an unbelievably psychotic narcissist behind that, his approval rating started to drop, and it dropped rather suddenly. From about the probably when he got elected in 2019 down to 2020, things started to career downwards when they saw that he was actually quite the narcissist that people claimed he was from his cabinet ministers and that lot. And the more and more we see of our Prime Minister, the one going out, admittedly, the more we realise how incredibly destructive he has been. And let's be fair, I can't stand Dominic Cummings, but a lot of what he's been saying about the Prime Minister has been correct. It's been on the money. He said he wouldn't quit. He said he wouldn't give up his position. And the only reason he's resigned is because he's been told by his cabinet he has no real ability to stand in a working government. He needs a working government to run the place. He can't run the country. He knows he can't run the country. And so to get people into cabinet positions, he's had to give ground. But I don't think it'll be enough. I think Dominic Raab will have to step up as an interim Prime Minister. And much of our country needs to get rid of him. He needs to be gone. He's a laughing stock on the international stage. He has been for years, and he still will be for many, many years to come. And personally, I find his presence to be an absolute harm to our country in general. Two seconds, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just making a post about me being live. Hello, Shial. How are you? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm open for any questions. Anybody want to post something, knock yourself out, ask me an opinion, be my guest. For the might of one person in my life currently. I intend to stay on for a full hour, so I'm not getting off until about 3 o'clock. Ish. So I'm going to be on for a whole hour. So those who come in and out are, alhamdulillah, are welcome to watch the live. About my last lives and the problems I was having. Apparently, scheduling live wasn't working on my YouTube planner because I was starting to work out how to schedule them and set them up that way. Well, apparently something happened with my scheduling system inside the YouTube algorithm that decided to then throw my ability to go live out the window. And I couldn't even upload videos from my PC. I had to upload them from my phone because it wasn't affecting my phone algorithm, but it was affecting my PC algorithm, which was crazy. But basically, I got to TikTok, not TikTok, my astaghfirullah. My TikTok account has been banned, and my main one has been banned, and my secondary one is banned until tomorrow morning. I'm always in trouble, always in trouble. But anyway, my YouTube, I spoke to the technical people. They've been amazing. Very quickly sorted out my technical issues and sorted out the things. They just reset the issues. So, Shit Ali, anything you want to ask me? You seem to be the only person in my life at the moment. No one else has even given me a salam yet. So, yeah, so far so good. First 5 minutes and I've got one person. More than happy to answer Christian questions. for if there are any questions in my comment section at all, or any of the pagans or atheists that I've rumoured that have joined my YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. There's two now. There's two of us. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will assume you're Muslim, because I would not know otherwise. Oh, fair enough. Babysitting the grandson. Chill, just chill. I don't think it'll be that overly alive, considering it's an afternoon on a Thursday, and most of the people I would normally go live with are at work. So this is a key reason why I do my lives a lot later. But I end up clashing timetabling wise with everyone else on the YouTubers who go live after 7 p.m. I need to pick a day, go live on YouTube that doesn't clash with Jordan or anyone else. And they tend to do their lives a lot later than the rest of the week. So do I. I prefer to want to do them on a Thursday or Friday. And it tends to mess up a bit on the timetabling on when I go. How is the grandson, just out of interest? He's well behaved? Whilst the son and daughter-in-law, or was it daughter-in-law and son? Or daughter and son-in-law out working? I assume he's behaving himself. Is he very little? So-so? Might as well generate conversation as you're one of 2 to 3 people in the room. Assalamu alaikum to number 3. Welcome to my live. It's generally a quiet live, asking questions. Son dropped him off. Alhamdulillah. Well behaved, not so well behaved. Sleeping, eating, tearing up the house. Oh, he's chilling. He's chilling. So that means he's slightly older than the natural little. So he's not little grandson. He's just slightly older grandson, and just probably got his own phone then, has he? I'm trying to generate conversation, as I don't have a great deal to discuss today except British politics. And the failure of our Prime Minister. I mean, the fact of the matter is that he managed to get a cabinet and political position, governmental position, in a... Oh, he's 2. Alhamdulillah. That's good. That's good. Soft jazz. Nice music. Nice music. I don't listen to a great deal of jazz much more. Thanks for reminding me how much I ever listened tonight. Might put some soft jazz. Anything you particularly advise? Anything you would say jazz wise to entertain? I mean, I was a bit of a Wreck and Bone man until his music started turning much more pop instead of soul that it used to be. Very, very fond of his I'm Only Human song. Really kind of soul digging stuff. But yes, back to Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is, without a shadow of a doubt, the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. He's had the most resignations in the space of a Prime Minister in all of history. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brother from another brother. Assalam, welcome to my live. Makes 2 of you. One looking after a grandson, the other one just chilling, watching me. So, as I said, the Prime Minister has had nearly 40 resignations in the space of 48 hours. And that's beats Theresa May. He's had more walkouts than Margaret Thatcher. And in essence, he wants to hang on until autumn. I don't think he'll make it that far. I think, quite honestly, there will be a push from the cabinet. Now, he's been an absolute... He's by far the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. And if you don't know history, Neville Chamberlain, because his statement, "We will have peace in our time," was believed to be the worst Prime Minister in Britain's had in non-wartime capacity, because some people will argue Winston Churchill was. But honestly, I would say in non-wartime capacity, Boris Johnson's been our worst Prime Minister without any shadow of a doubt. Lying, cheating, refusing to obey the rules. This is why I fundamentally believe we need a constitution now. We've got to the point where the gentleman's agreement has entirely broken down, has entirely fallen apart, to the point where we should start seriously having a conversation, both on and offline and inside multiple circles, about building a British constitution, one that actually is held accountable, that MPs can be legally prosecuted against. I fundamentally believe we need that conversation. We need to start now airing as Britons, we need a constitution. We need to write a constitution. That this gentleman's agreement thing has proven unconditionally that it's a broken system, and it is prone to abuse, and it takes literal years before MPs actually fix stuff, even when their method of fixing it is based upon a gentleman's agreement as well. You see, even if the Tory party elect a new party leader, and he's resigned as party leader, he's not obliged to give up being Prime Minister. He is not obliged at all to give up Prime Minister. Currently, the only political person who can sack the Prime Minister is Her Majesty. And there is a certain level of whether or not that would be considered a constitutional crisis if she was to sack the Prime Minister. You see, so we have a fundamental reality where we don't have a constitution. We don't have a social structure where there are balances and counterbalances towards his power grabs. He believes he can do anything he wants as his Prime Minister. And this fundamentally is a flawed ideology that we, the British public, have now woken up to. Now, whilst the gentleman's agreement was agreed upon and maintained and honourable conduct was done, it's an acceptable behaviour to maintain. But this is an unquestionable point where we should seriously, irrevocably consider now is the time for a constitution. Now is the time to fix terms. Now is the time to rewrite our very democracy as it sits, because it is proven to be irrevocably broken by the nature of the unmitigated abuse that the Tory party has engaged in, to the point where we are now reaching a plethora of misuse and abuse of political power from those from the gentleman's agreement that is no longer being honoured. And there is no power inside or outside of Parliament or of the courts that can remove a Prime Minister if he doesn't want to go. It's about gentlemen's agreements. So if we can't remove them, if we can't throw these prime ministers out, if we can't eject them from office, we now need to seriously, as a country, as a society, as a nation of Britons, to fix our fucking country. Sorry to swear for everyone who knows, and I humbly apologise to one of my viewers who's got a grandson. I hope you didn't hear me say that. And I need to be a bit more careful. But I am very angry about this. And I think it is high time, irrevocable time, that we literally maintain ourselves with a constitution. And we need to seriously talk about it. A constitutional necessity is absolutely there. You know, we need to fix terms on how long ministers are actually in power. We need to determine first past the post. Oh, absolutely. They let him do it. And the problem being is he surrounded himself by yes men as well, Shiali. They surrounded him by yes men. And those yes men need to go as well. Everybody in that cabinet. I don't care that Rishi Sunak left early. He needs to go. If the Tories re-elect him, we need a general election. We need to burn down the entire failed political system. We need to talk about a constitution. We need to write a constitution as a country. We need to literally have a referendum on that constitution, and then we need to build ourselves up from there. We need to get rid of the first past the post system. It doesn't work. It doesn't act as a proportional understanding towards democracy, and it's damaging. It leads people to lose faith in democracy, and that is a failed flaw. People need to know they have control of their government. If we are a democratic society, I don't believe we are. I fundamentally don't believe we live in a democratic society. We live in an oligarchical system where we have the trappings of democracy in a historical kind of connotation. But if we do, then we need to make more noise in creating a democratic society where they are answerable to us and not to the big banks and corporations. And I think we need to move further away from the American model of politics and closer towards our European brothers and sisters, because I genuinely feel that their model of democracy, as difficult as it can be in certain parts of Europe, is still better than the democracy we have here in the UK. And it's incredibly difficult for people to actually understand that. And I know many people are just turned off by democracy and by politics, especially even the Muslim community. But we cannot fix these problems unless we engage them. And I don't buy the pronuncius that we shouldn't be voting, that we shouldn't be participating in the democracy because it's considered haram by certain creeds inside of Islam. But it is the society we live in. And if we can steer it away from the haram it does, we should. We should be obliged to steer it away from it as best as we can. And I find that this is a flawed idea that we can't engage in democracy. I generally do, because if we don't engage in steering society away from haram, then we are participating in it by our negligence. Our negligence to our effect is the problem that we have. Do not complain about the haram of society if you're not willing to fix it. And I fundamentally stand by that. And when I speak to my beautiful brothers in the Salafi Creed, they don't have answers to that question. They fundamentally do not have answers to that question. And I generally stand by the reality that we need to engage. The Muslim community needs to be more engaging in politics and participating and directly pushing for a better, fairer, and in many ways, just society. Because it will be those baby steps that will lead us to bringing more people into Islam. Because if we make as a contribution to fixing the problems, absolutely, Sher Ali, absolutely. Alhamdulillah, perfectly said. We need to speak about the good and speak out against the haram. We really do. And the idea that we can't engage in politics because it's not a part of Islam is a fallacy, in my opinion. It's a false dichotomy. We live in the West, therefore we should cooperate towards bringing the West into a better world. And currently the Western political system is democratic. So we should engage upon the democratic system and steer our politics and energies in the direction of moving us forward. Maybe I'm just waffling. Maybe I'm dreaming of a better future for everyone. Us, the kuffar, everyone else around us. I don't see having to want to improve British society as being a bad thing. And the older I've gotten, what's astaghfirullah, what terrible word. The older I have become, I have perceived that I am no longer a centralist, that I'm drifting further and further to the left. Not to the radical left and the wokedom, because I will never be that far. But in terms of politics and social economic, I'm the argument that socialism is better than conservatism is starting to win me over quite considerably, especially when you look at the direction, perception, and occupation of conservatism in general society, especially when you look at it in the British model. I don't know about any of the others, but in the British model, it has a great deal to be desired in upon itself. I've been dreading this live, I must be honest. So I've managed to get about 1 to 3 people so far. Astaghfirullah. This has proven to be an anticlimactical event today. I guess I haven't been able to tell people on TikTok simply because I've had no access to social media. It's fine, Shahriars. Absolutely. If you've got things to do, you've got things to do. But in essence, I find that you're a Labour supporter. Alhamdulillah. Well, I think most of the Muslims are. And because I'm a historian, I tend to have a more conservative view in history and society. So my starting base is going to be slightly... I've never been a right-wing person. I'm centre-right, where I sat politically speaking. And then I've slowly been drifting across the centre spectrum to the left. At which point I've been going, you know what, I really can't. So when I say I'm conservative, I'm more of a kind of cultural conservative than an actual political conservative. I think that would be more, and I'm becoming more and more left as the time goes by, and I'm watching the rat race of conservative politicians. I'm like, astaghfirullah, I can't support any of that. The more I see it, the less it gets. No, not Labour. That's much more Jeremy Corbyn left. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? I can't do Jeremy Corbyn. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of Keir Starmer either, because he's a bit too technocratic. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think he'll win an election against any... If Boris Johnson was still in power, we would have he would win an election. because the country will have anyone but Johnson. Anyone but Johnson. And Keir Starmer will absolutely win an election against Johnson. But I don't think Keir Starmer will win an election against Rishi Sunak or even any of the other current political. I think Rishi Sunak's probably the most favourite. Liz might do well with women voters. Michael Gove will chuck his hat in, but I think he's damaged goods these days. I don't think he's going to get anywhere politically speaking, even amongst his own party. And you know, Boris sacking him was just an act of revenge. Yeah, he's a light blue Tory. In that regard, he is. But I do think that many of the left kind of see that for what he is. Keir Starmer is a light blue Tory, but he is very technocratic. And he's anti-European. And I think that's a massive turn-off for the left as well. I mean, I'm still pro-European today, obviously. My family are all over the fucking place. So it's the nature of who the hell I am, really. So, I mean, being pro-European is like, I'm breathing. I don't see the reason why we should divide ourselves on a continental level. The empires are gone. Building a European federation, I think, is a beautiful dream in upon itself. And I think that we will go back there. It might not be this generation, but we will be going back there. I might be in my 50s and 60s by the time we return to Europe, and all the dinosaurs have died, and the teenagers are now in control of the country in their 30s. I think it's inevitable that we will return to Europe after there's been a generation to fix the problems, maybe even when Europe's actually a proper federation. And I don't think the relationship will be the same again as it was. I think Britain will enter as a full nation, probably when the last of its trappings of its empire have fallen off to the side. Gibraltar has gone back to Spain. Northern Ireland has gone back to Ireland, and the Falklands are either independent or part of Argentina. I think it will take the last vestiges of imperialism to collapse for Britain to realise it's not an empire anymore, and theoretically getting kicked off the Security Council would be. I mean, personally, I think that Britain should have left the Security Council already, and the position should have been given to India or maybe to Brazil, historically speaking, because I mean, we're not an empire anymore. And I don't think the British people in general, I mean, the young British, 20 to 30-year-olds know that, but I don't think the rest of the British elders understand that the empire is very, very dead. And leaving the Security Council would be a shock to them all. And I think it should be considered a political thing. Like the chair should be passed to India. India was the jewel of the empire, and took a lot of abuse from the British Empire. And as such, the Indian subcontinent should be the one to benefit, in my opinion, from the last of the imperial trappings. Barring that, or if there was a major African nation that could be argued contributed towards it, because I mean, America's one of the major colonies and already on the Security Council. And I don't think Australia has the political or economical gimphus to inherit the British Empire's seat, relatively speaking. So I would say India. Or rotate it between India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh if you were trying to be novelly nice about it. But I don't think that's likely to happen. I think it's more likely that the seat should go to India, which is the bulk of the old imperial realm. And Britain should give up its colonies. Grenada, Northern Ireland, Astaghfirullah, Northern Ireland, Grenada, the Rock, and the Falklands. And then when that happens, I think that would stabilise the UK, the three countries, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and England. It would stabilise them, because then the trappings of English colonialism will be gone. The English elite would then realise that they're just one part of a union. They can't ignore the Welsh and the Scottish anymore, and it would cause some more harmony. And then by that harmonisation of the three kingdoms, we would probably then return to Europe, I think. But that may be 10, 20 years from here. I don't think it's historically a viable time frame for the current crop of politicians to even think about. But I don't think Scotland's going to get any independence anytime soon. The legality sits with the United Kingdom. The courts will probably rule in that direction. And Nicola Sturgeon is very, very cautious not to act illegally, so she can't be prevented. Because remember, if she illegally breaks Scotland, let's hypothetically say she does break away Scotland, and the rest of the UK doesn't engage in military actions. You've got to realise that Spain has a veto on membership of Europe, and they would never allow Catalonia to do that. And Catalonia is their biggest threat. So the Spanish would unconditionally veto it if it was an illegal Scottish formation of nations. And this is why Nicola Sturgeon is pursuing this legal representational position. It's because if she can get the legality correct and then get a Scottish independence, Catalonia can't use it as an excuse for the Spanish to then act as a veto. And that's fundamentally politically why she's pursuing that. Welsh nationalism or Welsh self-determinism, I think, is a better, because the Scottish nationalists aren't really nationalists, and I think it's unfair to call them nationalists. The Scottish nationalists are more Scottish independentists than actual nationalists. They don't have a nationalistic role because there's a very bad connotation linguistically with the word nationalism. You think of the BNP, you think of ultimately the German Nationalist Party when you go back far enough. So the Scottish are more kin towards self-determinationists than they are nationalists, because they're an incredibly left-leaning party. And again, the Welsh have a very self-determination. And there's been a bulk of Northern Irish, my cousins, who have wanted to return to Ireland for absolutely years. I mean, the movement has been going on since the 1920s, and Sinn Féin is not going to go away anytime soon. And anything, these chaoses in Westminster are adding fuel to the fire of the young Belfastians and much of Ulstrists to want to leave Northern Ireland, leave the Union, because there is a lot of chaos, and the proven political establishment are proving to be incompetent. They are fundamentally incredibly incompetent, the British political elite, and they're proving it, especially in the Tory party. I mean, the current crop of generation of politicians are not, and as much as people hate Margaret Thatcher, they're not of the calibre of Margaret Thatcher, even with all the good and bad that she did. Because she sternly stood up to the Falklands. She did politically, historically do some good. Even if she did absolute disasters to the north, destroyed unions, wiped out entire industries. She was a principled prime minister, I would use the words. Whereas the current crop, including Boris Johnson, including most of the political elite, fundamentally, she are completely worthless. But when you look upon the premises of British political systems, I think it's going to take a breakdown, a social, economical breakdown of trust, and then Scotland continue to advocate for independence to the point where Westminster will buckle under continual pressure and say, look, you can have your next referendum, but that next referendum might not be until we have another Labour government, and the chances of getting a Labour government are still slim. I don't think that Sturmer has the political gumph to win an election. I fundamentally believe that. I fundamentally believe his charisma is very, very lacking, and he's incredibly technocratic in much of his nature. And that is a fundamental point to hold and a fundamental position to be in. And I genuinely feel that we as a country should be weary of technocrats. Because even though they look appealing when dealing with firebrandic populists who don't give a damn about rules of society like Boris Johnson, technocrats are also incredibly slimy in certain aspects of what they do. I don't trust them. Genuinely, I think the political system needs an upheaval. We need to politically rewrite the systems. I absolutely support the idea of a British constitution. It needs to be written. It needs to be debated. We need to start having conversations, and Muslims need to engage. We need to engage now. We need to be the forefront people, in my opinion, to start talking about a British constitution, a code of conduct on how British politicians should behave, a social normality of how our political system is built and how it engineers itself, especially when you look upon how corrupt the current system is. And as I've said earlier in the live, for those who are only joining later on, the political system has fundamentally flawed in the first past the post, and even more frayed upon the gentleman's agreement, because the gentleman's agreement has now fallen apart. It's completely fallen apart, and this is why we must push for a constitution, and we must start asking our politicians, add it as a manifesto or we won't elect you. And I think even British Conservatives can agree that this is now a necessity, now a political necessity to fix the British system. We need to actually address the fact that we need a constitution. The gentleman's agreement just doesn't work. We've already had one red herring. It is now inevitable in time frame that we will have another. And no amount of well wishes, oh, he was a one-off, or he was a Trump. But the problem is there are Trump-like style politicians popping up all over America. And if we are an echo chamber of the US, that means we will have English politicians following Boris Johnson's model. And that's a fundamental problem. That's a fundamental problem for everybody, I think. I was saying I was going to stay on for an hour, but I think I've run my course at 30 minutes. Are you still with me, Shia Ali? Are you the only person still in the room? Or is Suhal the one that's with me? I'm thinking I might call it at now at the half an hour marker. With a stelling might of top of 5 people viewing. I think people tend to watch my lives afterwards and generally listen to it there, and I think that's probably the best option. Fair enough. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It has been a pleasure having you all here. I'm glad to have my lives back, and I intend to do lives more on Thursdays as a regular point of view for those who get to see the lives. I will be on probably going back to the afternoons, since I get some interaction, unlike in the evenings where the interaction has been very, very sparse. I've had almost no people on lives when I've done 7 p.m. lives, because people have decided to come off. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for coming to my lives.